The mechanic wakes each morning to the sound of his old alarm clock buzzing beside the narrow bed that sags in the middle, and he drags himself up with heavy limbs and tired eyes. He moves across the cramped room where rust-colored stains spread across the walls, and the faint smell of oil and metal never leaves. He dresses quickly in the same grease-stained overalls he has worn for years, and pulls on boots that have holes near the soles. He does not bother with breakfast because money is too short and hunger has become a familiar companion. He walks out to the small garage at the edge of town, a place filled with broken engines and discarded machines that no one else wants to fix. The roof leaks when it rains, and the lights flicker when he switches them on, but the mechanic knows every corner, every tool, every smell. This is his world, and it is both a burden and a comfort. The shelves are stacked with old parts collected over decades, bolts and wires and gears that might be useless to others, but to him they are treasures waiting to be revived. He spends his days hunched over engines of farm trucks and battered motorcycles, working with hands scarred from years of cuts and burns. Each repair brings in just enough to keep the lights on and the doors unlocked, but never enough to clear the mountain of unpaid bills. Waiting in a drawer near his bed, the mechanic has grown used to rejection from customers who prefer newer shops with shinier tools and younger faces. But he keeps going because this is all he knows. He clings to the rhythm of tightening bolts and wiping sweat from his brow, because without it he fears he would fall apart completely at night. When the streets grow quiet, he sits outside on a wooden chair that creaks beneath his weight. He looks at the stars spread across the sky and wonders if life has something more to offer. He remembers a time when he was young and full of hope, dreaming of building machines that would change the world, but those dreams were swallowed by years of hardship and failure. Still, he cannot help but feel a flicker of longing whenever he gazes upward at the endless night. The townspeople see him as a relic of another time. A few nod politely when they pass his garage, but most barely notice him. He knows he is fading into the background like the rust on his tools and the dust on his windows. Yet deep inside, a quiet determination remains. He tells himself that maybe one day something will happen to prove that his skill and his persistence mean more than survival. Every sound of the night echoes in his ears: the cry of stray dogs, the distant hum of passing vehicles, the creak of the garage door shifting in the wind, and though he does not know it yet, change is coming. Change far beyond anything he can imagine is on its way to his quiet, forgotten life. The storm arrives without warning, as heavy clouds roll across the sky, covering the moon and stars until the town is swallowed in restless darkness. The mechanic is still awake, sitting at his workbench, staring at the unfinished engine of an old motorcycle that no one will ever ride again. He listens as the wind pushes against the walls and the roof creaks with every gust. The rain begins with a whisper, then quickly becomes a torrent, hammering the thin metal sheets of the garage and pouring through the cracks in the roof. He places buckets under the leaks, though he knows they will soon overflow. The thunder shakes the walls, and the mechanic feels the vibration in his chest. He wipes the sweat and rain from his forehead with a rag stained dark with oil. He thinks about going inside to his bed, but something holds him in place. He feels uneasy, as if the storm carries more than water and wind. It feels alive. It feels like a warning. He steps outside, pulling his jacket tight around his shoulders. The rain soaks him instantly, and the ground squelches beneath his boots. The streets are empty, the windows of the houses shuttered and dark, as if the whole town has hidden itself from the storm. The mechanic squints through the downpour and sees the flicker of lightning illuminating the distant hills. For a moment he swears he hears a sound that is not thunder, a low groan like metal tearing apart. His heart pounds as he tries to convince himself it is only the storm, but then it comes again. A sharp screech that cuts through the night, followed by a violent crash that shakes the ground. The mechanic stumbles against the wall of his garage, staring out into the darkness toward the source of the noise. It came from just beyond the town, near the empty fields, where no vehicles should be at this hour. He hesitates, unsure whether to stay or investigate. His sensible mind tells him to remain inside, to wait until morning, yet something stronger pulls him forward. Curiosity, hope, perhaps even desperation. He knows that nothing ever happens in this forgotten place, and now something has happened, something big he cannot ignore it. The rain whips across his face as he walks into the night. His boots sink into the muddy ground, and his jacket clings to him like a second skin. He carries only a small flashlight that flickers with age, and every step feels heavier, as if the earth itself tries to hold him back. Still he continues, because his heart refuses to let go of the strange sound that calls him forward. The further he walks from the town, the darker it becomes. The streetlights end, the houses vanish, and the only light comes from flashes of lightning that reveal the endless stretch of fields. For a moment he sees nothing but mud and grass and rain. Then the ground shakes again, and he hears a hiss of energy like steam escaping from a broken pipe. He lifts his flashlight and the beam cuts across the field. There, half buried in the soil, lies something he cannot explain. A shape both sharp and smooth, glowing faintly even beneath the storm rain cascading across its curved surface. It is no car, no plane, no machine he has ever known. It is something otherworldly, and it waits for him in the darkness. The mechanic stands frozen as the rain pounds harder against his shoulders, and the beam of his flickering flashlight trembles in his hand. The strange vessel before him gleams faintly through the storm, as though it carries its own inner light. Its surface is both smooth and fractured like glass that has been bent rather than broken, and every time lightning flashes above the clouds, the ship reflects the light in shifting colors that no human paint could ever create. He feels his throat tighten as he steps closer, every instinct screaming at him to run away, yet another deeper instinct telling him to look. The mud grips his boots as if warning him, but he drags himself forward until the ship towers above him, half buried in the earth. It is not large like the airliners he has seen pass overhead, but neither is it small. It is the size of a house perhaps, but unlike any house made by human hands, the edges are curved in ways that defy logic, flowing into shapes that make his eyes ache to follow. As he runs his hand over its wet metallic skin, he feels warmth instead of cold, and a low hum pulses beneath his fingertips, like the beating of a heart. Suddenly, a hiss escapes from a seam along its side, and a panel shifts with fluid motion, opening into darkness. The mechanic stumbles back, nearly dropping his flashlight. His heart slams against his ribs as he watches a shadow move within the opening. At first he believes it must be a hallucination caused by exhaustion and the storm, but then the shadow steps out and the truth is undeniable. A figure emerges, tall and slender, with movements graceful like flowing water. She does not stumble in the mud. She walks as though the storm itself bends away from her. Her eyes catch the dim light and shine with a soft glow, neither human nor mechanical. Her hair clings to her shoulders, but even through the rain, it seems to shimmer faintly with hues of silver and blue. Her clothing is not fabric as he knows it, but something seamless that shifts with her body. Like liquid metal, she stops only a few feet away from him, and for a moment the mechanic forgets how to breathe. The woman looks at him, not with fear, not with hostility, but with calm authority, as though she already knows who he is and why he has come. She speaks a single word that he does not understand, her voice clear even above the storm like music, carried on the wind. The mechanic blinks his eyes wide with confusion, and shakes his head. He does not know what she is saying yet. Somehow he feels the meaning behind it. She is asking for help. His mind spins. He is only a struggling man with broken tools and a crumbling garage. He can barely keep his own life together. Yet as the rain falls around them, and the ship pulses with hidden energy, he realizes that he stands before something impossible, and for the first time in years he feels that perhaps his hands, his skills, his very existence might matter more than he ever believed. The mechanic cannot move as the woman stands before him, the storm raging around them as though the world itself has been split into two separate realities. One of mud and rain, and another of impossible light. She looks at him with those unearthly eyes that seem to hold galaxies inside, and he feels small yet strangely chosen. Her lips part, and again she speaks in that flowing language of hers, a sound like water rushing over stones. He does not understand a single word, yet her tone is steady, and her hand gestures toward the wounded ship half buried behind her. He realizes she is asking for repair. She wants him to fix the vessel that brought her here. The mechanic laughs under his breath, though the sound is lost in the roar of thunder. How could she believe he is capable of touching such a thing, let alone repairing it? He thinks of his failing garage, his rusting tools, his unpaid debts. He is no scientist, no engineer of wonders. He is just a man holding himself together with grease and sweat. Yet the woman takes a step closer, and he feels her presence push against him, not threatening but undeniable. He sees trust in her eyes, or perhaps certainty, as if she knows something about him that he does not know himself. She points again, to the ship, then, to his hands, calloused, scarred, worn by years of stubborn labor. For the first time, he wonders if the work that kept him chained in obscurity might be the very thing that makes him useful. Now the mechanic swallows the lump in his throat and nods. Slowly he gestures to himself, then to the vessel, and she answers with a single firm nod that carries both gratitude and command together. They move toward the opening in the ship and he steps inside, hesitating only once. As the humming walls surround him, the interior glows faintly with streams of light, running like veins across smooth metal, and every surface curves in perfect harmony without bolts or seams. It feels alive beneath his fingertips. The woman walks beside him, silent yet watchful, as if weighing his every reaction. He tries not to tremble, though every instinct screams that he is trespassing in a place no human should ever stand. He bends low to inspect a panel, sparking faintly with bursts of blue light, and though the design is alien, he recognizes something beneath. It wires conduits, connections that echo the broken machines he has rebuilt 1,000 times in his garage. The language may be foreign, but the structure feels familiar. He realizes he might actually be able to help. He pulls a small tool from his pocket, one he has carried for years, a simple wrench, scuffed and bent from overuse. The woman tilts her head as though curious that such a crude object could matter here, but when he kneels and begins working, adjusting the angles, prying loose a damaged component, he sees the ship respond. The humming steadies, the light stabilizes, and for the first time in years, he feels pride burn in his chest. The woman watches quietly, her expression unreadable, yet her gaze never leaves him. He senses that in this moment his life has shifted beyond repair, and that whatever future awaits will be shaped by this choice to fix. A vessel not of his world, the mechanic crouches low inside the strange vessel, his knees pressing against the glowing floor as he works with steady hands despite the storm raging beyond the open hatch. He feels the pulse of the ship like a living heartbeat beneath his fingers, and though the shapes of its parts are foreign, their purpose whispers to him in ways he can almost understand. He removes a panel and sees coils of light, shimmering like liquid energy flowing through crystal tubes. He thinks of the fuel lines of old engines, of the way power must move from source to machine, and though the design is alien, the principle feels the same. The woman kneels beside him, silent yet intent, her glowing eyes following every motion of his hands. He feels her breath near his shoulder, and it sends a shiver down his spine. She does not speak, yet her presence carries weight, as if she is both observing and judging whether this human is worthy of the task he has chosen. He does not dare look at her for too long, for fear that he might lose his focus and fail. He keeps his eyes on the tools and the glowing circuits, determined to prove that his skill is not wasted. He digs into his small tool pouch, pulling out pliers that have seen better days, their grips wrapped in old tape and their edges dulled by time. He knows they are laughably primitive compared to the technology surrounding him, yet when he uses them to tighten a connection, something changes. The hum of the ship rises and the tubes glow brighter. The vessel responds to him as though it recognizes the touch of hands that have repaired countless broken machines. The mechanic feels a surge of pride, stronger than any he has known in years. The woman tilts her head, and for the first time, a faint smile touches her lips. It is not the smile of amusement, but the smile of recognition. She seems to know now that this man, though worn and forgotten, carries a gift that cannot be dismissed. He meets her eyes for a fleeting moment, and in that gaze he feels as if a silent pact has been made. She trusts him with her ship, and perhaps with more than that, though he cannot yet see the full measure of it. Hours seem to pass, though it is impossible to track time inside this vessel. The storm outside rages and subsides, yet he continues to work, guided by instinct and determination. Every repaired joint, every realigned wire brings the hum of the ship closer to harmony. He wipes sweat and rain from his forehead with the back of his sleeve, his body aching but his spirit alive in a way it has not been for decades. He is not just fixing a machine, he is proving that his life has purpose beyond mere survival. Finally, he steps back, his hands trembling with exhaustion. As the ship glows steady and strong once more, the woman rises. With him, her expression solemn and powerful, she places her hand lightly over his chest, just above his heart, and though no words are spoken, he feels gratitude radiating from her, more profound than any thanks he has ever received. She sees him not as a failure, not as a forgotten mechanic, but as the man who has given her the chance to rise again. The mechanic leans back against the inner wall of the vessel, his chest heaving with exhaustion. As the hum of the ship settles into a rhythm steady and alive, he stares at the strange symbols glowing across the panels, symbols that shift like flowing rivers of light, each curve changing as though it were breathing. He does not understand the language, yet somehow he feels it responding to his work, acknowledging his presence, as if the ship itself knows he has restored a broken part of its soul. The woman remains beside him, silent, her eyes following every pulse of light that spreads across the interior. Her expression holds calm, but behind it there is something deeper, a weight he cannot name. For a moment, she raises her hand to one of the glowing panels, and the ship answers with a resonant tone that vibrates through the floor. The mechanic feels it echoed through his bones, and he realizes this machine is not merely a vessel, it is something far more alive than any craft made by human hands. He kneels again, adjusting a connection that sparks with faint blue light, and the woman crouches next to him, her silver hair brushing her shoulders. As the storm outside thunders, she watches closely, yet offers no interference. It is as though she knows this human man must finish the task alone. He grips his worn wrench with both hands, twisting a stubborn piece into place until the spark fades into a steady current. The hum grows louder, stronger, like a beast awakening from long slumber. Every time he glances at her, he feels both small and significant. He is aware that she is no ordinary traveler. She carries herself with quiet authority, her posture unwavering, her gaze sharp. He senses layers of meaning in her silence, as though she is measuring his worth against standards he cannot see. Yet, despite his fear, there is also a strange comfort in her presence. For the first time in years, he feels he is not working in vain, not merely fixing scraps, but restoring something extraordinary that depends on him alone. The hours blur into one endless stretch of labor, his arms heavy, his back aching, yet he does not stop. Sweat mixes with the rain that still clings to his skin, his hands raw and trembling, but he presses forward because each piece he repairs brings him closer to completion. Each flicker of light stabilizing, each vibration smoothing gives him strength. He begins to believe he was always meant to face this moment, that all the years of failure and solitude were only preparation. Finally, the last panel closes with a whisper of motion, and the ship glows from within, steady and brilliant. The mechanic lowers his tools, letting them clatter softly against the floor. He feels a wave of relief crash over him as the hum evens out into calm certainty. The woman places her hand on his shoulder, and her eyes soften, though her face still carries the dignity of command. In that silent touch he feels both gratitude and something heavier, a truth waiting to be revealed, though not yet. The mechanic realizes he has crossed a threshold that cannot be undone. He has fixed not just a machine but something that will alter the course of his life forever, though he cannot yet see how. The mechanic sits on the floor of the vessel, his arms limp at his sides as though every ounce of strength has been poured into the repair. The hum of the ship is steady, now resonant and alive, casting a soft glow that fills the cabin with shifting patterns of light. He looks around at the symbols dancing across the walls, and he wonders if they are words, commands, or perhaps thoughts of the ship itself. He has worked on machines his whole life, yet never has he felt one respond like this, as if it were aware of him, of his effort, of his touch. The woman remains close, standing tall, her silhouette framed by the glowing walls. She has not spoken in words he understands, yet he feels her communication in glances, in gestures, in the calm certainty of her presence. She studies him with eyes that seem to pierce deeper than flesh and bone, and he feels stripped bare under her gaze. He wants to ask who she is, what she seeks, and why her ship has fallen into his world, but his tongue cannot form the questions. His mind races with fear and wonder as silence stretches between them. Then the ship itself seems to answer. A surge of energy rushes through the walls, and the symbols flare brighter, casting sharp shadows across the cabin. The mechanic flinches as visions spill into his thoughts. Unbidden, he sees vast towers rising into skies of strange colors. He sees fleets of ships like the one before him stretching across the void of space in endless formation. He sees creatures bowing in great halls of light where a throne rises higher than any palace of men. The visions vanish as quickly as they came, leaving his heart pounding and his breath ragged. He stares at the woman and realizes the truth. She is no ordinary traveler. She belongs to something far greater, something vast and hidden from his world, an empire that rules in silence beyond the reach of human knowledge. The mechanic trembles at the weight of this discovery, yet the woman does not flinch. She only tilts her head, as if confirming that he now knows a fraction of the truth. She does not need to explain, for the visions have spoken louder than words. The mechanic feels torn between awe and dread. He thinks of his small garage, his unpaid bills, his quiet nights, staring at the stars. How could such a life connect with what he has just seen? He feels like a child clutching broken tools before the gates of a kingdom too vast to imagine. Yet here he stands, chosen by circumstance or fate to mend the vessel of one who belongs to that hidden dominion. The woman steps closer, her hand brushing lightly against the glowing panel beside him, and her eyes meet his again. This time he does not look away. He feels the gravity of her presence and the silent acknowledgement that though he cannot see the path ahead, he has already taken the first step into a world he was never meant to know. The mechanic rises slowly from the floor of the vessel, his legs stiff and his body heavy, yet his spirit restless. The ship hums with new strength as though eager to leave the earth behind, and he can feel the vibration running through the soles of his boots. The woman places her hand upon the wall, and the entire cabin responds with a surge of light flowing outward like a tide. The mechanic shields his eyes as the glow deepens until it feels as if the very air inside is alive. Suddenly, the walls no longer seem solid, but translucent, and through them, he sees visions that stretch far beyond his imagination. Cities of impossible scale float upon oceans of fire. Towers rise higher than clouds, each glowing with veins of energy. Ships larger than mountains drift silently between stars, their hulls gleaming with the same living light that surrounds him. Now he sees armies standing in perfect silence, their armor reflecting colors unknown to human eyes. He sees halls of power where shadows move like monarchs cloaked in both beauty and terror. The mechanic stumbles backward, overwhelmed by the enormity of what is revealed. He grips the edge of a panel to steady himself, his heart slamming against his chest. The storm outside still rages, but it feels small, distant, insignificant compared to the vastness unfolding before him. He realizes now that the woman who stands only a few feet away is not just a traveler, not just a survivor of a crash. She is connected to the empire hidden behind these visions, an empire so vast it could swallow his world without effort. The woman does not look at the visions, as he does. Instead, she keeps her eyes fixed upon him, as if his reaction matters more than the empire itself. Her gaze is calm and unyielding, yet within it there is a faint softness, a quiet recognition that he is seeing what no other of his kind has ever seen. The mechanic feels as though he has been pulled from the mud of his forgotten life and set before a throne of unimaginable scale. He is terrified, yet he is alive in a way he never knew he could. Baby visions fade slowly, the walls returning to their seamless glow, but the images burn in his mind like fire that will never cool. He cannot return to who he was only hours ago. He cannot look at his garage or his rusting tools or the quiet streets of the town in the same way again. Something has shifted forever. He is now a witness to a truth larger than his entire world. The woman steps closer and places her hand gently over his own, resting on the panel. Her touch is warm and steady, and he feels a calmness wash through him, as if she is telling him without words that he has done more than repair a broken ship. He has crossed into her world, even if only for a moment, and that moment will follow him for the rest of his life. The mechanic stands near the open hatch of the vessel, the storm outside reduced to a steady drizzle, as if the world itself has calmed in the presence of what has awakened. The hum of the ship is now deep and certain, steady, like the pulse of a giant heart. He wipes the rain from his forehead. With the back of his hand, his tools still clutched loosely between his fingers, though he knows his work is finished. The woman steps beside him, her posture tall, her gaze fixed beyond the fields toward the horizon that shimmers faintly with the coming dawn. She turns to him, her eyes glowing with that same strange light, and though no words pass her lips, he feels the weight of her gratitude pressing into his chest. It is unlike any thanks he has ever known, greater than coins or handshakes, greater than praise from customers long gone. It is silent yet eternal, and in that silence he senses both reward and farewell. She reaches forward and touches the scarred knuckles of his hands, her fingers soft and steady, as if acknowledging every year of labor, every failure, every stubborn moment that brought him to this night. The mechanic wishes he could ask her to stay. He wishes he could demand to know the truth of her empire, of the visions that burned into his mind. He wishes he could follow her beyond the sky, to see with his own eyes what he has only glimpsed, yet he knows he cannot. His life is bound to this earth, to the dust and rust of his garage, to the solitude that has shaped him. He is no ruler, no soldier, no traveler of the stars. He is a mechanic, and tonight he has served a purpose greater than he will ever understand. The woman steps back into the vessel, her figure framed by the glow within. For a brief moment she pauses, as if considering something unspoken. Then she inclines her head, a gesture both regal and intimate, and he feels as though she has marked him forever. The hatch closes with fluid grace, sealing the light inside. The mechanic stares at the vessel as it hums louder, lifting slowly from the torn earth. Mud and rain swirl around its rising form until it breaks free from the ground and hovers silently above the field with a surge of brilliance. The ship ascends into the clouds, vanishing into the fading night. The mechanic watches until the last glimmer disappears, swallowed by the endless sky. He stands alone in the field, soaked by rain, trembling from exhaustion and wonder. His tools hang heavy at his side, but his heart feels lighter than it has in years. He turns back toward the town, walking slowly through the mud, each step echoing with the knowledge that he has touched a world no one else will ever believe back. In his small garage, he places his tools carefully on the bench, as though they are relics of something holy. He sits in his old chair and looks once more at the stars, now visible through the thinning clouds. They seem brighter than before, closer than before, and though he knows he may never see her again, he also knows his hands have served not just a woman, not just a ship, but a hidden empire that rules beyond human sight. And in that quiet truth he finds a reason to keep living, a reason to keep working, a reason to endure.